be the adrenaline rush that Bagnaia needs to try and keep himself as close to the front of this race as possible. As soon as he's got Jorge Martin right ahead of him, that will just keep him dialed in, just keep the adrenaline pumping. Because the longer this race goes on, the more of a physical challenge it's going to be for Bagnaia, particularly if Martin starts to ease clear.
Well, over one lap on soft tyres, Martin was dynamite. Bagnaia and Bezzecchi picked up their speed, got to 131s, it was just too hot for Binder to handle.
Turn 14, there it is, into turn 14. The yellow sprinter came out in the fourth section just before we into that replay to show you what happened with Aleix Espargaro and Brad Binder crashing out of the race. So any hopes of a KTM podium now once again rest on the shoulders of Dani Pedrosa, who is matching the race leaders for pace, but he's 2 seconds off the back of the leading trio.
You do think that any glimmer of hope, a small glimmer of hope that Binder... It's out and we are going. San Marino is a superb launch from that 10th GP pole from Jorge Martin. He leads the way, just as he did in the sprint yesterday. Marco Bezzecchi's got away well too. Bagnaia, big and a good start. Pedrosa has a moment there on the rear as he squeezed the power on towards turn 2. He was briefly in third place, but Pedrosa back in P4 where he started.
Pedrosa had a fantastic start. I thought he was going to high side there through turn 2, but he is back into fourth place where he finished the sprint yesterday. That looks like Brad Binder siding through up inside of Marc Marquez. Binder hasn't fallen short where he did yesterday by getting a false start. He's away well this time, straight up into fifth.
He barged his way through the pack yesterday, didn't he? He picked that way through the flares that went on 3 races, can barely find out. But even thankful the Pecco Bagnaia's got the bright yellow Ducati out there today, because vision, not really easy, is it? As they pick their way through. Martin leads, Bagnaia then in second place. We ride on board with the world champion through to Monto for the first time. Bezzecchi in third place. Marc Marquez, he's already up into 8th spot on the factory Honda.
Really good start for Miguel Oliveira. He's up 3 into 7th place, just ahead of the Marquez brothers. Aleix Espargaro is 10th. He's lost 4 places off the line, so 4 starts winning 2 factory brilliance. Aleix Espargaro's actually dropped behind Luca Marini now into 11th.
Yeah, Vinales finished the sprint yesterday in a disappointing 6th place. That's where he finds himself early on here then in this 27-lap race. We're looking back briefly to Pecco Bagnaia. Now looking forward from Bagnaia's Ducati towards your race leader. Martin then attacking into the zone of the corners. Here comes Bagnaia. That was going to be a real daring move. You don't see many moves still coming through that final corner. He just showed Martin his front wheel there, didn't he though? Martin it is though that leads at the end of the first lap. Bagnaia second there, second third. Pedrosa fourth. Binder's had a good first lap. On to fifth.
Oh, he looked like he was having a little dip as well into turn 2. Bagnaia very keen to get on with this early on, isn't he? He is all over the back of Jorge Martin like a rash. He now closes in into turn 4, but Bagnaia, who we know is so good on the brakes, and he carries a tighter line there than Martin, who goes slightly wide into 4 and 5. Martin really backing up the world champion early on.
Stunning onboard footage this, isn't it, between Martin and Bagnaia. They power down and I'll just click 6th gear briefly onto that Red Bull bridge. You can just see there, I was just about to say, Bradford has got to find a way through Dani Pedrosa, because that top 3 are breaking away. He had to make that move pretty quickly. Did Binder, and he found a way through on the KTM wildcard. So Binder then up into 3rd spot. So there's Oliveira and Vinales side by side going into turn number 10 there. There we go, pretty good back of the 6th place.
Yeah, looks like Vinales has held that one for now. He's still in 6th place. Well, Bezzecchi now close to Bagnaia, and Bagnaia is to Martin. You saw the one going side by side through 4 and 5. But Bagnaia now settling into 2nd place. Crucial moment, that a crucial move from Brad Binder in these early stages to get ahead of Dani Pedrosa. And you can quickly see how he's put some space between himself and his teammate, and he's closing in on the back of this leading trio.
Yeah, as soon as Binder got through on Pedrosa, he's gapped him by 7/10 of a second already in the first 3 splits on this 2nd lap. They'll come through the final corner then on this lap 2 of 27. It will be Martin who will have the advantage, closely pursued by Bagnaia and Bezzecchi. Binder has set the fast lap of the race so far, having dispensed on Pedrosa and immediately down to the 132s, a 132.324. That was just a little bit quicker than Martin. Just a quick tyre selection check for you. Everybody in the field has gone for the hard front medium rear tyre, apart from the Hondas of Marc Marquez, Stefan Grado, Taki Nakagami and Joan Mir. That quartet have gone for that soft rear tyre. Marquez is the only one's making the early grip advantage count as he's up there in 8th place.
Yeah, a really good start to the Grand Prix for Marc Marquez, who did launch himself up the order early in the race in Catalonia, only 2 slip back as the race unfolded. And hoping that doesn't repeat itself here once again. Final ball there with the reigning world champion Pecco Bagnaia, who's certainly not allowing Jorge Martin to get away as he did early on in the sprint yesterday. And that will be the adrenaline rush that Bagnaia needs to try and keep himself as close to the front of this race as possible. As soon as
lap on soft tyres. Martin was dynamite. He was absolutely untouchable in the third and fourth sectors. Although Marco Bezzecchi said the sprint against over 13 laps, he was actually the first two sectors where Martin on the race runs had the superior pace. It wasn't helped though, was he, Bezzecchi, by the fact he was nursing that left hand injury, which was really hindering him on those aggressive change direction in that first sector. Particularly here when you go right in turn one, then immediately an aggressive change direction, you bank your left now through turn two, and then it's another aggressive flip to the right. This is where Bezzecchi was really suffering yesterday, just to manhandle that GP22 around in that battle against Martin.
Fascinating early battle then between these three Ducatis. You see Bagnaia once again able to carry that tighter line through turn 4. Martin then has the better look at 5. We now ride through 6 with Jorge Martin, the pole man, looking back at Bagnaia. Bezzecchi, the fastest rider on track. He's at the fastest lap the last time around at 1:32.205. But very little to choose between our leading 4, with Brad Binder matching the Ducatis ahead of him, but still 8 tenths of a second off the back of Bezzecchi in third.
Nearly 80,000 fans here today, already loving this action, aren't they? As the two Italians, Bagnaia and Bezzecchi, maintain this early pressure on the poleman Jorge Martin, who led every corner of yesterday's 13-lap sprint. He's been in that very same position so far early on in this Grand Prix. Through the fast right-handers now, breathtaking, that 6-gear Cabone corner. One of the spectacular corners on the Grand Prix calendar there. At the moment, he's trying to hone in on this top 3. There's Brad Binder out of picture as they go through the first gear, turn 14 on this 4th lap. Just on a quick check on Binder. He's 7 tenths of a second behind Bezzecchi, so he's found a couple of tenths actually to the mini VR for a 6 rider on this 4th lap.
Although, to be fair, he did lose a lot of that in the first sector, so it's kind of restored him to where he was when the lap began. Martin does set the fastest lap of the race on 1:32.0 as he opts the pace. Personal best for each of the leading 5 last time round, including Danny Pedrosa, who does a 1:32.2. He's starting to pull clear of Marc Marquez, who got quicker as the sprint went on yesterday, but at the moment he doesn't have an answer for the 2 KTMs ahead of him.
Disappointing this, isn't it, to say the least, from Vinales, who's had 4 MotoGP poles here in Misano. He's made a brilliant debut in a private tester exactly 2 years ago. He had big hopes, particularly after his 2 podiums in the sprint and the Grand Prix in Barcelona last weekend, but just has not had the front-running pace, and that's how it's going so far this Sunday for Vinales. Still there in 6th place. Just resisting from Miguel Oliveira on the year on the Prix behind us. Bezzecchi goes in wide. He goes in really, really wide. That's going to drop him back into the clutches of Binder, and of course costing time to Bagnaia directly ahead of him. He's able to regroup, but just running slightly offline there. Bezzecchi has cost him half a dozen bike lengths to Bagnaia at least.
Saw him making mistakes in the sprint yesterday as he was trying to keep up with the leader Jorge Martin, so he's hoping that that's not going to be history repeating itself for him. He's quickly closed back up again to his right-handers of 11, 12, 13 and 14, so he didn't in the end cost Bezzecchi that much time. We're right on board then with Jorge Martin. This will be completing lap 5 of 27. You'd imagine Jorge Martin, if he's comfortable running this pace at the front, will be thinking, I'm just going to keep this up, keep the relentless pace up as much as I can, and ask the question of the 2 riding wounded behind him, can Bagnaia and Bezzecchi last this pace for the full 27 laps? Because there's nothing wrong with Bagnaia's pace at the moment.
Yeah, those big questions that Martin's posing are being answered emphatically, aren't they, by the world champion. Bagnaia now the fastest rider on circuit here in Misano. He's got down to a 1:32.003. That was about a tenth and a half quicker than Martin, and we're looking directly ahead up now. They come through the tight turns 4 and 5. Now this Misano circuit really starts to open up. You build speed. 2nd gear through turn 6. Bagnaia crashed out the lead there only 2 or 3 years ago, and bizarrely blamed a tear-off, which gifted Marc Marquez victory. Coming from a long way back though is Marco Bezzecchi into Quercia corner. Bezzecchi goes through. Well, he put that mistake at turn 10 behind him on the previous lap. Very, very quickly did Marco Bezzecchi. He then hits 2nd place.
Beautiful move that from Bezzecchi, although he's going hot again for the 2nd lap in a row into Tremonto. So all that hard work that he did, it was a brilliant move on the brakes into Quercia. He's now going to make that move all over again.
That's going to be kicking himself inside that helmet right now, Marco Bezzecchi, because it was a beautiful move to get into that 2nd place. Pecco Bagnaia on the brakes into turn number 8. Not an easy place to overtake there. So easy to just running that a little bit hard. And it all went wrong 2 corners later. Although he's immediately, once again, got straight back onto the rear tyre on Bagnaia. Through turn 15 we go then. We're looking out directly towards Bagnaia, that very distinctive bright yellow one-off home race Ducati livery. The boss looks on. He'll be liking what he sees so far. Bagnaia and Bezzecchi still in those podium places. Martin finds another PB lap in the Grand Prix. 1:32, 1:45, 3:10 he took out of Bagnaia on that last circuit.
Fastest rider on circuit though is the rider in fourth. Brad Binder sets his personal best for 1:32.050. The battle between Bagnaia and Bezzecchi was not only playing to the hands of Martin, but also of course into the hands of Binder, who will just close in on that leading trio. There he is on the 33 now, coming through your picture. Fastest rider on circuit, just a second off the lead now.
Quicker than Bagnaia and Vignales on that last lap was Repsol Honda's Marc Marquez, doing an absolutely rip-stalking job on that soft rear tyre. How long will that soft rear hang in there underneath Marquez? He's taken the punt to get some information and knowledge for HRC ahead of what's a very important post-race test here tomorrow, particularly for the strong Japanese manufacturers, as Fabio Quartararo and Marc Marquez pin their hopes on some new kit, transforming their fortunes, not just this season, but into next season as well. And there's been some big pre-race reports here in Misano that despite all the gossip and speculation about Marc Marquez moving to Brazilian Ducati next year, that he will see out the final year of that unprecedented 4-year contract with Honda. So Marc Marquez at the moment still in 8th place.
Look at the leading four then, led by Jorge Martin, his trio of Ducati, the top three in the World Championship, the top three in this Grand Prix. There's the gap that we're tracking between Bezzecchi and Binder, not getting any closer really on this lap at this stage to the top three. Here he is on the 33, and you can see that the pace has been raised up a notch by the riders up ahead. Martin set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, immediately betted by Bagnaia.
Fair play to Bagnaia and Bezzecchi, because at this stage of the race, they have got the speed, they can go with Martin. Martin is trying to force issue here, just to try and tire and fatigue out the two injured Italians behind him. But every time he pushes, there's a response coming immediately behind him. There we go then, back to Marquez on the 93 Repsol Honda. He is on that Michelin soft rear tyre with still 20 laps to go. Everybody around him on the hard front medium rear tyre. You just wonder whether durability and endurance issues may curtail Marquez's hopes of a rare visit to a top 10 this year, but at the moment he's doing another rousing job in there in 8th place. The next best Honda, you've got to go all the way back down to Joan Mir, who is, well, Stefan Bradl actually, the test rider, who is in 20th place.
Talk about the contrast from one side to the next for Aleix Espargaro. He's down in 13th place at the moment. A shocking afternoon so far for the factory of Prix man, who didn't get the start, lost places on that first lap from the second row of the grid. He's started 6th in this race. Aleix Espargaro is in 13th. He's in a battle with the two Frenchmen, Joan Zarco ahead of him in 12th, and Fabio Quartararo just behind him 14th.
This is Quartararo's problem. He's probably got the better speed on Aleix Espargaro. They're pretty ahead of him, but he just can't find a way through. Here's a replay then of Aleix Espargaro's style. It looks like we're on board with the double Catalunya winner last weekend. Did not get away well at all, did he, on that RSGP? Immediately swallowed up. Oh, Brad Binder's crashed out. Brad Binder is coming up on our screens. We're looking at this replay. Brad Binder has crashed out of 4th place. That was the big rear tyre slide for Danny Pedrosa, who's checked up the field behind him. He made a really good start, hadn't he? We still look at these replays, and there's contact there between Bagnaia and Bezzecchi, but Brad Binder has crashed out of 4th place. Strack Miller's got a track limits warning, so we'll try and find out then what happened to the South African Brad Binder. We just saw, didn't we, on the previous lap, Martin, Bagnaia and Bezzecchi picked up their speed, going to the 131s. It was just too hot for Binder to handle.
Turn 14, there it is, into turn 14. The yellow sprint that came out in the 4th section just before we went to that replay to show you what happened with Aleix Espargaro and Brad Binder crashing out of the race. So any hopes of a KTM podium now once again rest on the shoulders of Danny Pedrosa, who is matching the race leaders for pace, but he's 2 seconds off the back of the leading trio.
Do you think that any glimmer of hope, a small glimmer of hope that Binder had of winning the World Championship this year for KTM, that has just gone with that crash here at Misano. We do still have 8 races left as Martin goes well wide through Cavone. We've got to be careful about track this morning, but Binder was already 96 points behind Bagnaia coming into this Misano Grand Prix. It's going to be well over 100 unless something happens to Pecco Bagnaia later on here. So Brad Binder then, surely that's his title aspirations completely extinguished. Simon, before we talk about Binder, you had some observations and some thoughts.
Yes, what I believe I'm seeing is, I'll be honest, I didn't expect Pecco to be able, with his injuries, match lap for lap, absolutely match Martin, but he can. But it's another thing to get past. I believe he wanted to get past and tried for 5 laps. Then that's the sort of time you can spend behind someone before you over but he won't spend too much time there.
Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. The pace is slacking off here. One man who's really up in his speed is Pedrosa in fourth place. He's just on a PB lap. He's in the 131s. 131.937. That was 3 or 4 tenths quicker than anybody directly in on circuit. Yellow flags.
KTM
to
just got
one.
worse, man, because it was Jack Miller and Michele Pirro who were plummeting down the order. They were running together in 14th, 15th and 16th, and there you can see both bikes there on the outside of turn 4. That was where Jack Miller crashed out here last year. He's gone down with Michele Pirro, so both of the factory KTM's down on consecutive laps.
The quarter with that as well was Fabio Di Antonio, wasn't he? He just caught the back end of that. It looked like maybe Miller was ahead of Pirro on circuit. He won't pause your blame until he's seen the full hits of that one. What is not up for dispute is that both of them are out of this Grand Prix. Bit of a disastrous day for KTM, to say the least. Upholding their one now is the wild card. The old warhorse himself, Dani Pedrosa, in fourth place. He was always a genius, wasn't he, at rear tyre management, helped by his lightweight and his silky smooth riding style, not overstretching the tyre. Again, Pedrosa keeps himself in those 131s. The gap between Pedrosa and Bettesecchi down to 1.3 seconds.
Surely not, surely not. We'll be making Dani Pedrosa fans watching back at home thinking, is the impossible possible? He was so close to a sprint podium yesterday, he just could not outbrake Pecco Bagnaia, but he's closing in. That's consecutive laps now that Pedrosa has been 3 tenths quicker than the trio of Ducatis ahead of him.
Honda might be having a horror show so far this season, but you have to doff your cap to Marc Marquez on that soft rear tyre. As we watched Miguel Oliveira run wide, that's why Marquez picked off that 6th place. Marc Marquez is running a pretty lonely 5th at the moment. Yellow flags are out again in the first sector. That's still the clear-up operation from Miller Pirro. So now Mir's gone down. Mir has crashed yet again. His woeful 2023. We keep saying it can't get any worse, and as soon as you say that, it does. Mir was in 19th place. He's gone down at turn 4.
Dani Pedrosa is now within a second of Marco Bettesecchi. He's briefly increased through the third sector. There is Joan Mir, who's gone down on the outside of turn 4 and 5. Just as they cleared up the mess from Michele Pirro and Jack Miller, Joan Mir joins the same piece of tarmac as we now come back to the trio of Ducatis up the front, and Dani Pedrosa up behind, who's becoming an ever-increasing presence in the back of the front of this Grand Prix as Martin, Bagnaia and Bettesecchi continue to trade lap times in the low 32s. Pedrosa's in the 31s yet again. 32.2 for the first two, 32.3 for Bettesecchi, 31.9 for Pedrosa.
It couldn't, could it? It could not happen, could it? Dani Pedrosa, his last MotoGP victory was at Valencia, the closing race of 2017, nearly 6 years ago. But Dani Pedrosa is about to play a big, big part in the outcome of this San Marino Grand Prix in 2023. This guy is pure class. We're talking about Dani Pedrosa, a rider who's had over 150 Grand Prix podiums. You want to know about his stature in this sport. Pirro and Miller's incident's going to be reviewed after the race. Only Marc Marquez, Jorge Lorenzo, Mike Hailwood, Angel Nieto, Valentino Rossi and Giacomo Agostini have won more races than Dani Pedrosa in the 74-year history of Grand Prix motorcycle racing. But Pedrosa now starting to pose a big, big threat here in Misano. There he is, back in your picture in 4th place.
He's already had 3 tenths out of them on this lap so far as Pedrosa. The gap's down to from 0.9 to 0.6. This trio of Ducatis are having their own private battle at the front. They're leading through the championship, and they've got the wily old wild card closing in at the back of the picture. There he is into the picture. Pedrosa is closing at a vast rate of knots.
He's had 6 MotoGP podiums here in Misano. He was the race winner in 2010, the race winner in 2016. He was our 8th different winner in 8 successive races in 2016. That incredible run 7 years ago. But Dani Pedrosa, talk about old book gold, rolling back the years, blast from the past. Pedrosa again, it's another personal best lap from the number 26 on 131.876. He's just 6 tenths now behind Marco Bettesecchi, striking distance to the front of this Grand Prix, 1.1 seconds behind Jorge Martin. This is astonishing. The fairy tale is on.
He's the only rider on circuit lapping in the 131s at the moment. The Ducatis ahead of him aren't going slowly. They're in the low 32s. But for reference, you've got Miguel Oliveira, Alex Marquez and Ralph Fernandez are in the mid-32s. Luca Marini did a 33.9 last time round as he lost out to Ralph Fernandez and Joan Zarco. But this is 3 consecutive laps now where Dani Pedrosa has been a good third of a second quicker than the guys ahead of him. Through the first sector, Pedrosa is now within 6 tenths of a second of Bettesecchi, who's surely getting information on his pit board. The 26 is catching you.
Well, a podium is going to spark wild celebrations for the wild card. Imagine if he does win this Grand Prix. If Misano had a roof, it would be lifted off. Astonishing performances by Dani Pedrosa. He did say though in the sprint yesterday that when he was in that podium battle, he was a bit ring rusty. This is only his third Grand Prix in the last 5 years since he retired from full-time racing at the end of 2018. He just didn't feel like he was razor sharp on the brakes to attack Pecco Bagnaia, of course, wary as well that he didn't want to do anything that was going to jeopardise the World Championship hopes of a sprint podium. But this is a different game. Dani Pedrosa, that gap
stretched out again through that third sector. I don't know whether Pedrosa's made a mistake there through that third sector. He lost half a second through the fast right-handers at the back end of the lap. The Ducatis ahead of him didn't respond. They're back into the 31s now. Martin Bagnaia. Pedrosa must have made a mistake through the third sector because he's back in the mid-32s. 32.5 last time round for Pedrosa. So let's see if he can rebound and regroup on this lap. Bagnaia has a look at the inside of Martin. No way through into Rio.
We're going to keep the dream alive in the commentary box, no doubt about that, because we're not even a half-race distance here for Dani Pedrosa. It has been fascinating, it has been intriguing. Martin has led from the get-go here in Misano, as he just opens up what looks like, in terms of this Grand Prix, the biggest lead he's had so far. And that's saying something because it's only just under 0.4 of a second as Bagnaia just gets in too hot, doesn't he? Oh, that was close. That was into the Rio corner. We've already seen Miller, Pirro and Mir go down there. There was contact between Pirro and Miller, which will be reviewed by the stewards immediately after this Misano battle. Pedrosa is just trying to claw back some of that ground he lost on the previous lap. He's a couple of tenths faster than Bezzecchi through the first half of this lap 14, which will take us into the second half of this San Marino Grand Prix. There is Pedrosa on the 26 bike, just out of pitch now as they come through the tight first gear, turn 14. So easy to lose a front end there. You saw Brad Binder have that problem a few laps ago, which stumped the KTM star out of 4th place.
Just past half race distance now in this San Marino Grand Prix. As we head into the second half of it, the big question will be which of these Ducati riders has the most left at the end in terms of the time.
Bagnaia, we know, is probably the best defensive rider in MotoGP. He's so hard to overtake. He's so good on the brakes, but it looks like he's just running out of rear grip himself here. This is the gap then. Bagnaia is being told that there's nothing between him now and Dani Pedrosa. Look at the corner speed that Pedrosa has, the edge grip that Pedrosa has, that carbon fibers chassis, KTM. Bagnaia, there could be some crushing late heartache coming here. He's worked so hard for this home podium, but the pressure coming from Pedrosa.
Well, the issues we've seen from Bagnaia in this race so far have been out of corners. We saw the moment there out of turn 14 a couple of laps ago. He had that problem coming out of turn 10 earlier on as he desperately tries to get that bright yellow Ducati stopped into turn 14. There will be 1 lap to go once they complete these 2 left-handers. Can Dani Pedrosa finally solve the Pecco Bagnaia puzzle? He couldn't solve it in the sprint yesterday. He's got 1 more lap to try and snatch a first MotoGP podium for quite some time.
4.2 kilometres then stand between Pecco Bagnaia and a superhuman effort to take a home podium here, and Dani Pedrosa completing a fairy tale for the factory KTM team. They come through turn 3 then. Pedrosa still not close enough. This is one of the overtaking hotspots gone. Into turn 4, into Rio. So now it's all about using that superior edge grip that he has to try and just close in on Bagnaia. Out of turn 6 they come, and Pedrosa's going to be nowhere near enough to attack him on the brakes into turn 8 as well.
As predicted, Luca Marini has made his way past both Rafa Fernandez and Marc Marquez, so Marini now up into 7th place, although just as I say that, he's lost those places back again. No problems really on the plate of Jorge Martin right now, although his lead has come down to 1.4 seconds. The focus is all on this battle. Bagnaia versus Pedrosa. Pedrosa really needs a good run here through 11, 12 and 13 to be closer to 14, but I'm not sure he is close enough.
Pecco Bagnaia is the footballer coming to park in the bus, isn't he? 11 men behind the ball. He defends so brilliantly. He did it in the sprint yesterday against Pedrosa. He did it 8 days ago in the sprint against Marc Marquez. It looks like he is going to hang on to a really hard-fought and hard-earned podium here to limit the damage in terms of the championship. He is going to hold up Dani Pedrosa, who's thrown everything at him. But here comes Jorge Martin out of the final corner. Martin is the Misano maestro in MotoGP. He completes the dream double victory. He won the sprint yesterday from start to finish. He wins the Grand Prix today from start to finish. Jorge Martin then wins to close the gap to Pecco Bagnaia in the World Championship. Marco Bezzecchi, 2nd place for him.